Hi, my name is Jack Rackham, and today I'm going to show you the line of succession to the President of the United States in 2021. Note that these people are not guaranteed to receive their positions, as they are subject to the confirmation of the Senate, although such rejections are somewhat rare, especially in a case where the President is a member of the majority party. Only 9 nominations have ever been rejected, with another 17 being withdrawn before being presented to the Senate. So, the threat of rejection is always a factor when cabinet secretaries are being chosen. We're going to break down who these people are, what a Biden administration might look like, and what would happen if the president were incapacitated during his time in office. We're going to be approaching the president's cabinet in order of succession. That is, if the president were incapacitated, who would be the next to serve in his place, and who would step up if that person were incapacitated, and so on. The list is pretty extensive, so it's very unlikely someone from most of these offices will ever find themselves required to take an oath as president. But nonetheless, out of an abundance of caution, there is an old practice that if too many of them are in one location together, such as in the event of an inauguration, there is always one person tucked away as the designated survivor. The first person to step up as president, no surprise, would be the vice president. The vice president has ascended to become president 9 times in U.S. history, 8 times upon a president's death, and once upon Richard Nixon's resignation. Put another way, roughly 1 out of every 5 vice presidents has become president without a separate election. But the president doesn't have to be assassinated or forced to resign for a vice president to serve as acting president. On 3 occasions when a president has undergone surgery, the vice president has very briefly served as acting president, which means they hold the power of the office without getting the title. For those curious, those VPs were George Bush Sr. covering for Reagan and Dick Cheney covering for George Bush Jr. Today, the vice president-elect is Kamala Harris, a former public attorney and the first Black, female, and South Asian vice president. She was the daughter of 2 immigrants, a Black Jamaican man and an Indian woman, and we've already gone into some detail on her family tree in another video, which you can also find in the description. She studied law and went on to become the District Attorney of San Francisco and the Attorney General of California, before being elected to the U.S. Senate for 4 years, running in the presidential primaries, and then, of course, becoming vice president-elect. Now, fortunately, no one below the vice president has ever been required to take up the mantle of president. But if they did, the next 2 people in line would not be cabinet members at all, but instead the most honorary members of each chamber of Congress, first the House, then the Senate. The distinction, for those unfamiliar with the American system, is that the House is composed of 435 voting members from districts based on population, whereas the Senate is composed of 2 senators from each state, regardless of population. This compromise from the nation's founding, when states were more independent of one another, results in a scenario where the House favors national majorities and skews Democrat, while the Senate favors the autonomy of smaller states and skews Republican. The Speaker of the House, second in line for the presidency behind the VP, has a few different roles. Most familiar to the public, the Speaker of the House tends to be the face of the majority party. This isn't written into law anywhere, but the Speaker is elected by the House of Representatives, and each party tends to vote for someone of their own party. Ipso facto, the most popular member of the leading party becomes Speaker. They're in charge of setting the agenda and controlling which bills will be brought to the floor for debate. The current Speaker of the House, representing California's 12th District, is Nancy Pelosi. She's been a member of the House since 1987, and since 2003, she's been either the Speaker of the House or the Minority Leader. As a result, she's become the face of the old establishment Democratic Party. She's known for opposing the war in Iraq, repealing the policy of don't ask, don't tell, and for leading the impeachment of Donald Trump. And until Kamala Harris takes office on Wednesday, Pelosi is the highest-ranking female public official in U.S. history. Next in line is the Senate President pro tempore, which is a much more befuddling position than Speaker of the House. There are 3 positions of significance in the U.S. Senate: the President of the Senate, the President pro tempore, and the Majority Leader. The President of the Senate is actually the Vice President, which is why in the event of a 50-50 tie, the VP becomes the tiebreaker. But other than that, the President of the Senate doesn't have much power due to the way that bills are brought to the Senate compared to the House. Whereas in the House, the Speaker and the committee chairs can bring a bill to the floor, the Senate requires a majority approval. Hence, the Vice President traditionally doesn't spend much of their time presiding over the Senate, except on ceremonial occasions, such as when Mike Pence presided over the counting of electoral votes 2 weeks ago. Instead, the Senate elects a President pro tempore, Latin meaning President for the time being. This person fills in whenever the VP isn't around. They're in charge of maintaining order and are generally thought of as a more neutral office. Today, it's mostly an honorary position awarded to the senior-most member of the majority party. The Majority Leader is the person who holds the real power in the Senate, even though Majority Leader isn't an official position required by law. They are the person who leads their party, gets votes on their side, negotiates with the minority leader and their party, threatens to block bills, and is the chief spokesperson of their party. That's why you're much more likely to recognize Mitch McConnell, who's served as the majority leader during the Trump administration, than you are to recognize Chuck Grassley, who served as President pro tempore. Today, the President pro tempore is Patrick Leahy, who's served since 1975 and is the only remaining senator from the Ford presidency. But believe it or not, he's only the second most senior congressman after Don Young, who's represented Alaska since 1973 during the Nixon administration. A few other interesting things to know about Senator Leahy: he's the first and only Democratic senator from Vermont. There is, of course, Bernie Sanders, but he's actually registered as an independent, except for when he's running for president. Senator Leahy also ran a very unusual race in 1998 when he received an endorsement from his Republican opponent. The man who won the Republican primary that year wasn't actually a politician at all. He was a retired farmer starring in a mockumentary about a retired farmer running for Senate, who then proceeded to run for Senate and actually defeated the GOP frontrunner who had only recently moved to the state. Now, from this point on, we'll be dealing with unelected officials, that is, the cabinet members chosen by the president and presumably confirmed by the Senate. First among them are what I'll be calling the Big Four departments, which all serve a pretty fundamental role in keeping the country running. Firstly, we have the Secretary of State. This is the person who oversees foreign policy. They advise the president on the appointment of ambassadors, immigration policy, foreign aid, conducting negotiations with foreign governments, just about anything that involves the outside world. They used to have some domestic responsibilities as well, but those have largely been phased out with the introduction of new departments over the years. The man appointed to this position is Anthony Blinken. He was one of President-elect Biden's 2 earliest picks all the way back in November, and that's because he has a long history in politics and a long history with Biden. Here you can see him in the room with the president during the raid on Osama bin Laden. But he's also held senior positions in foreign policy since the Clinton administration. He was also important in crafting the Obama administration's policy toward Iran and acted as national security advisor to then Vice President Biden. He was also a supporter of the 2003 invasion of Iraq and proposed to split Iraq into 3 different countries based on ethnic and sectarian lines, though this idea was overwhelmingly shot down. After the Secretary of State is the Secretary of the Treasury. This is the person in charge of taxes, managing the national debt, fiscal policy, and all that other fun stuff. They also have an international role in working with the International Monetary Fund and other multinational economic organizations. And until the creation of the Department of Homeland Security in 2003, it was the Secretary of the Treasury who was in charge of the Secret Service, strangely enough. Biden's nominee for this office is the former chair of the Federal Reserve, Janet Yellen, who succeeded Ben Bernanke in 2014. Though she was fired in 2018 despite a tradition of holding on to Treasury secretaries, in part, allegedly, because the president believed she was too short. She was the first woman to hold the position, just as she'll be the first woman to hold the position of Secretary of Treasury if confirmed. She's earned a PhD in economics from Yale and taught at Harvard and Berkeley, focusing primarily on the paradoxes of unemployment and how low unemployment can lead to reduced inequality, which she holds as a major economic uncertainty in America. A traditional Keynesian, she was the first one to raise interest rates since 2006 and has stated that she wants to push for another stimulus bill to combat the economic fallout of COVID-19. Next, we have the Secretary of Defense. Their role is pretty straightforward. They're in charge of the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, and Space Force. They make decisions that affect the entire military and answer only to the president. Biden's pick for the seat is Lloyd Austin III, a retired four-star general in the Army who commanded U.S. forces in Iraq prior to the Army's withdrawal in 2011, and would be the first black man to hold the position, just as he was also the first black man to lead the United States Central Command from 2013 to 2016. Last of the Big Four, we have the Attorney General, the only department chair not referred to as secretary. This person advises the president on matters of law, and originally represented the federal government in cases brought before the Supreme Court, but that role has since been designated to the Solicitor General. The nominee for this position was named much more recently than the others on this list, and that's probably a result of the initial uncertainty surrounding control of the Senate prior to the Georgia runoff elections. Merrick Garland has already been rejected by the Senate once in 2016 when he was nominated for the Supreme Court, unexpectedly turned down on the grounds of a very short-lived precedent that a Supreme Court justice shouldn't be nominated during a president's final year in office. He's served as a judge on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals since 1997. After the Big Four, the remaining line of succession is determined in order of the department's seniority. So, as each department is created, its secretary is placed at the end of the line of succession. The first department to be created after the country's founding was the Department of the Interior, which oversees federal land. This includes resource management, the National Park Service, and the Bureau of Indian Affairs. It's perhaps somewhat telling of 19th century America that it was the Secretary of the Interior sent to negotiate with them and not the Secretary of State. Today, however, the nominee for this position is Deb Haaland, a representative from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and one of the first two Native American women to serve in Congress. If confirmed, she would be not just the first Native American Secretary of the Interior, but the first Native American Cabinet Secretary in U.S. history. She's a relative newcomer to politics, having worked within the Democratic Party from 2012 to 2015 before becoming a congresswoman. Next is the Secretary of Agriculture. In a bit of a strange overlap with the previous department we looked at, this person manages national forests, but also ensures food safety. It's also their job to provide food to low-income people via food stamps. The current nominee is Tom Vilsack, a politician with a background in the executive branch. He served as Iowa governor from 1999 to 2007 and has actually already been the Secretary of Agriculture from 2008 to 2015. He was nearly the only member of Obama's cabinet to have served with him from the day he took office to the day he left office, but he retired a week before the inauguration of Donald Trump. He very briefly ran against Obama for the 2008 election, but after announcing his bid at the end of 2006, he had withdrawn by February of 2007. He was allegedly on a short list of running mates for Hillary Clinton, with Iowa being an important swing state after all, but it seems he didn't make the cut. The Secretaries of Commerce and Labor. These were originally one department before Labor was spun off on its own, so we'll begin with Commerce. The Secretary of Commerce is in charge of fostering the creation of jobs and the growth of U.S. businesses. One of the things they do to achieve this is handling the collection of data, such as the census and the National Weather Service. And they're involved in situations where the U.S. runs into conflict with what it sees as unfair trade practices in other nations. The Secretary of Labor, on the other hand, is in charge of protecting the rights of people in the workplace, people looking for work, and retirees. They handle things like occupational safety standards, wage and hour standards, and distributing unemployment benefits. The Department of Health and Human Services also has some familiar names. It houses a number of recognizable agencies, such as the FDA and the CDC. Being the Secretary of Health sounds pretty self-explanatory, but you might be wondering, what exactly are human services? Human services agencies tend to focus on quality of life. For example, the Administration for Community Living, which looks after older Americans and Americans with disabilities. The nominee for this post is Xavier Becerra, who's had a career quite similar to Vice President-elect Harris. He was born to two immigrant parents, became a representative from Los Angeles for 24 years, then filled Harris's seat as Attorney General of California after she joined Congress. In fact, he was originally suspected to be the person who would fill her Senate seat after she was elected in November. After him, in some nightmare scenario where this baker's dozen of officials all disappear off the face of the earth, the country would be left to the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, the person who helps to ensure mortgages, ensure fair lending, and prevent discrimination, and to develop communities in urban areas and provide services to people without homes. This will likely be Marcia Fudge, a former mayor of a small town who's represented Ohio's 11th district since 2008. She'll be replacing 2016 presidential primary candidate Ben Carson. Another former mayor and presidential primary candidate is likely to become Secretary of Transportation, and that would be Pete Buttigieg. Prior to working in politics, he graduated from Harvard and won a Rhodes Scholarship to study at Oxford, then worked as a consultant at the prestigious McKinsey management consulting firm. He's also the first openly gay cabinet nominee. As his title suggests, his agency's stated mission is to develop an efficient and economical national transport system with regard to need, the environment, and national defense. Okay, we're in the home stretch. The Secretary of Energy is a role that doesn't require much explanation. They oversee electricity production and distribution, but you might be surprised to learn that they also oversee genome research and the United States nuclear weapons program. The next person to hold that responsibility, if confirmed, will be Jennifer Granholm, a graduate from Berkeley and Harvard and a former governor of Michigan. She was reportedly under consideration multiple times for the same role in the Obama administration, and it seems now is her time to shine. Next, the Secretary of Education. This office was only created in 1979, before which it used to be contained within the same department as Health and Human Services. Of course, the United States had a public school system before 1979, but the American system is very decentralized, leaving the establishment of schools and the composition of the curriculum as a question for state and local governments. Instead, the Department of Education allocates most of its budget towards Pell Grants and student loans. The subject of student loans, in particular student loan forgiveness, has become a contentious issue lately. So, what might the new Secretary of Education do about it? Well, Miguel Cardona has had a very recent entry into politics. He previously worked as a teacher and a principal, becoming assistant superintendent in his hometown until 2019, then quickly becoming state commissioner of education, and then Secretary of Education. What some people hope, and some people fear, is that Biden will issue an executive order and Cardona will wipe away student debt across the nation. But this is unlikely to happen, as Biden has previously stated that it's questionable whether or not the president has that authority, and that he would prefer to pursue student debt forgiveness through an act of Congress. What Cardona may do, however, is to promote and simplify the existing student and teacher loan forgiveness programs currently available to individual applicants. At number 17, there is the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, who provides benefits to veterans of the United States military, most often healthcare, but also vocational training and disability compensation for those who qualify. They also take a role in responding to emergency situations, such as natural disasters and the COVID-19 pandemic. Leading the department will likely be Dennis McDonough, another returning member of the Obama administration. He served on the National Security Council in Obama's first term and as chief of staff in his second. You can also see him in this photograph taken during the Osama bin Laden raid. However, he is not a veteran himself. And the very last person in line to become President of the United States, should tragedy befall everyone else in the cabinet, or should they all opt for 17 simultaneous surgeries, there's the Secretary of Homeland Security. This is the newest department created in the wake of the September 11th attacks, but don't let that fool you. It's actually the third largest department after the Departments of Defense and Veterans Affairs. Broadly speaking, Homeland Security protects public security against threats too small for the military, but too large for local law enforcement. These are things like terrorism and cybersecurity, but the department also has a hand in border security and disaster prevention and mitigation. Nominated to this position is Alejandro Mayorkas, another familiar face from the Obama administration, and the other cabinet member chosen all the way back in November. His family came to the U.S. as refugees from Cuba in 1960, but by 1998 he had become the youngest U.S. attorney in the country. For clarity, a U.S. attorney is similar to a district attorney, but one who prosecutes federal crimes. He's already served as Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security from 2013 to 2016, in which time he led the DHS's response to the Ebola and Zika outbreaks. Okay, those are all 18 people in the line of succession to become President of the United States, in the worst-case scenario, and every last one of the President-elect's nominees for the country's many departments. But before I go, I want to give some honorable mentions, so to speak. There are a few agencies you'll likely recognize that don't fall anywhere on this list, such as the CIA. These are known as independent agencies, and there are 7 of them considered to be cabinet positions. I won't go over every single one, but there are a few you might want to know about going into a new administration. First, the newest chief of staff is Ron Klain, a former chief of staff to Joe Biden in his time as vice president, and former White House Ebola response coordinator. There's also been a significant change to the leadership of the EPA. Michael Regan from the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality will be replacing climate change skeptic Andrew Wheeler, a former advisor of Senator James Inhofe, who famously brought a snowball to the Senate floor as evidence against a warming climate. On the subject of climate, Biden is also creating a new cabinet-level position called the U.S. Presidential Envoy for Climate, held by former Secretary of State John Kerry. It's unclear exactly what his impact will be, but we know he'll have authority in the executive branch over energy and climate policy, and will be a sitting member of the National Security Council. It will certainly be an interesting development to see where the office goes from here. Alright, that wraps up everything. If you're curious about what the last presidential cabinet looked like, you can check out our video on this team's predecessors, and of course, you can find any of the videos I've mentioned in the description. Thanks for watching.